fire department report? Oh, I'm sorry. Review and discussion of possible action to approve roster of elected fire department officers for 2009, 2010.
Tonight's meeting, we did as you asked, and went over the elections.
Okay.
Fire department come back with reaffirming me as chief, Justin Bedford as assistant chief, Mike Laughlin as captain station 1, Steve Fernetovich as captain station 2, Rusty Tucker as lieutenant station 1.
Okay. I have some questions regarding that, which is kind of confusing to me, and I had to type down some of these questions today because there's been a lot that's evolved, and in talking to some people, I need some clarification for myself. So you did have the nominations and re-elections that night?
I asked the gentleman what the problem with the election was. They said the only problem they had was the fact that the chief matter wasn't brought up.
Okay.
We discussed why it wasn't brought up.
Which was?
Because if you look at the state law, it says the chief is appointed.
Okay, by
the council.
By the council, okay.
Okay? And I also said to them, I'll tell you what I'll do right now, is if you guys don't want me as chief, say so, I'll step down tonight, and we'll take a vote. If you want me as chief, vote yes. If you don't want me as chief, vote no. And we took a vote. Overwhelming majority was to keep me as chief.
Okay, I have some questions about that. I appreciate you pointing that out. During a phone conversation you and I had a while back, you said you weren't at, the officers weren't nominated in the March meeting, I guess it was, because you weren't at that meeting? February? Because you weren't at that meeting.
Nominations were not open.
Were not open, and Steve forgot to do it that night?
Correct.
Okay. So, you didn't have the nominations, so you're saying that...
Nominations were open next month. They're usually open in February. They stay open from February, and they close in March.
Okay.
So actually, they stay open until April. They're closed in April. We hold the election in April.
Okay, so they were open later on then?
Yes, they were open in March. Went over again in April. There was no reason for an election because there was only one candidate for each office.
Okay, so you did open the nominations back again at your last meeting and have those re-elected?
Right.
Okay. How were those tabulated? Those votes tabulated?
Counted. Secret ballot. Right on a piece of paper.
Okay.
Well, if you only have one person, there's no tabulation.
So who was one person? You? Or
Which for which office are you talking about?
Well, all of them.
Well, if there's only one person nominated for assistant chief,
Okay.
there's no vote.
Okay. And so...
It's like if one person files for a council seat, and there's no opposition, there's no vote.
Okay. So my follow-up question then, I guess, is that you stated that there was no reason to vote on the chief's position because he was appointed by the town, but you didn't feel necessary to go ahead and open the nominations and follow a process for over the next month period for those guys to vote on that? That was what's really confusing to me. Furthermore, what was even more convincing, as much as I respect Mr. Stiles, having a private citizen count the votes and be part of that election.
Nonpartisan.
Okay, that's interesting.
You might have a purpose.
No, sir. We have a motion on I have a motion to not to accept the roster of elected fire department officers.
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? Jane, we call roll, please.
Fernetovich,
No.
Jones,
Yes.
Smothers,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes. We will definitely take this up at a further meeting. Agenda item number 16, discussion, consideration, possible action to remove Paul Fernetovich as Bethel Acres Fire Chief to place him back into the ranks as firefighter for the good of the service. And this is where, Paul, I've done I have some questions that, I gotta tell you, over the last month since this was brought up a month and a half ago, that some things have just spinning around in my head on this, that I have some questions, and if you don't mind, I'm gonna ask several of these, just for my clarification. You did hit on the fire department training that you have coming up. Was that first responder 1? Is that what you have?
Firefighter 1.
Was it
We've got a
firefighter?
first responder class coming up,
Okay,
and firefighter, we're working on getting the firefighter 1 class going.
okay. And I remember Mr. Simpson, is that right? Is that Mr. Simpson, is that your name back there?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I remember when he was
What-
here.
what
when he
is
was
the
here-
question?
No, that's all right. I just remember when he was here last time. I just want to make sure I called you by name correctly. You were talking about the firefighter 1 training, and has it been, when was the last time it was offered here at the fire department for our firemen?
The last couple of years, there's been a lot of turmoil up at Stillwater, and you had to have a minimum of probably 15 people to get a class going.
Okay.
We didn't have 15 firefighters. We tried getting classes going from surrounding departments, and if you set a class up, the instructor come in and he didn't have 12 guys, he turned around and walked out the door, wouldn't put the class on.
Okay. So it's been 3 years plus, 4 years?
More than that,
Well,
probably.
Now you gotta understand, a lot of guys went to
Sir,
other
please,
departments.
I've got public comments up here. I'm not gonna let this get out of control like we did last time. So,
And at the time, at one time, we had almost everybody in the department had firefighter. We didn't have a need for the classes.
okay. So that was just my question on the training. So it's been a long time, 5 years plus probably. I'm just trying to get a gauge. Okay, 5 years plus.
That we've had any number, right now, we've got 4 or 5 guys in each class.
Okay. My second question has to do with the approval, and this is my learning, the approval of new firefighters. I'm sure the fire department has a minimum requirement for potential new firefighters, do they not? Just, I'm not asking to list all of them, but what would some of those be for a new firefighter to come on board?
There is no requirement for a new firefighter coming on board.
Okay,
A gentleman fills out an application, it goes at the front of the membership. The application is reviewed by the officer team, comes in front of the membership, membership either votes him on or doesn't vote him on.
okay,
If he's brought on as a probationary firefighter, he's on probation for 1 year. During that year, he has certain things that he is required to try to get, okay? And as long as he is trying to get those classes, at the end of that year, he is voted, he comes before the membership for a vote to be voted on permanent.
okay. And then, did I understand you correctly in talking to you one time that after he's voted on and you bring that application before the board to
It's usually, the application has been brought before the board, it's usually, in the past, the board has said, if you guys vote him on, it's good enough for us. We don't need to vote every guy on the fire department.
is that in one of our resolutions that we're supposed to approve those?
The board has the ultimate decision.
Okay. So just minimum requirements for a firefighter, would it be, obviously driver's license? Do they do a background check?
Yes.
Okay, background check.
Valid driver's license, background check.
No CDL certification or anything like that? Okay. One thing that I got very concerned about when it comes to the fire department was you have how many trucks total?
10.
10 trucks. How many of those trucks have standard transmission?
1, 2, 3.
So 3 trucks that have standard
4.
transmission, 4? Okay. The ability to drive a standard transmission, wouldn't that be a necessary requirement for the fire department?
If he can't, he has to go through an EVT class before he's allowed to drive a truck. Emergency vehicle driver training.
Okay. Do
If
they
he
teach
doesn't
them?
know how to drive a standard, then he's not gonna drive that truck. Okay? And we'll
Okay.
teach him. But every firefighter has to go through every year emergency vehicle driver training.
Okay, because I understand you have a new firefighter that can't drive a standard transmission. There's a lot of trucks that require standard transmission, so
He was out Sunday,
Okay.
with one of the firefighters.
we're teaching them how to drive
Training.
standard. Okay.
Can I go back for a second?
Yeah.
When you're hired in, is that hired in after the firefighters vote on it, or after the interview?
What was that now?
when a new applicant comes in, turns in an application, and he's interviewed and is brought in front of the firefighters, they vote him on, is that the date he is hired?
Yes,
And he's not to be put on a pension until the date following that, right?
correct.
Well, I've got some papers here I want to show you. This was mine. I used to be a firefighter here, remember?
Wait a minute, let me explain something about the pension.
So
Now,
he could
let me
be-
explain something about the
He could be
pension.
put on a pension a month prior to being hired as a fire department? Is that true?
The pension papers,
Just answer my question.
He's answering this question. Let's keep this.
can he be put on a pension prior to being hired?
Before being hired?
No.
What is that, favoritism or neglected
Okay,
duties?
hold on. Let's keep this civil.
I'm just asking.
Paperwork is
If you look
sent
at
into the pension
date at the
system.
bottom and the date at the top when it's stamped by the pension office.
I do see this application, we need to obviously look into this. It does say the pension received July 16th when it was stamped by the firefighter pension, and that is actually, looks like 3 weeks before the person's date of hire, which was I'm
Is
not.
that because it's family member
Could I
or
see
favoritism?
Yes, sir. And I'm just looking at the date on the front of it there.
It might be considered like poor record keeping.
Well, we'll go back and pull out his application. The day he fills the application out is considered when he's voted on. If you look at the calendar, probably 8/6 is probably the first day of the month.
Okay. I'll let you keep those if you need to. Do you have any other questions regarding that?
No, not
Okay.
that one.
Okay. I have a couple more, then I'll let you ask your questions, and Tom, if you have any. Paul, I have to say that working in groups of people, that morale is a very important part of any group or organization. I hear some crazy stories that go on during the meetings. On a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best morale that's possible, where would you rate your department on a scale from 1 to 10?
Right now,
Right now?
probably 6 or 7.
6 or 7, okay. I understand that this wasn't the first time, but it's a normal situation where you have a shoving match in the middle of your meetings.
A shoving match?
A shoving match or men chest to chest and standing,
No.
squaring off. to each-
Never happened.
Never happened.
Never had a shoving match? Okay.
No.
You ever have firemen threaten to do something to other people and call them outside
In a meeting?
during a meeting or after a
No.
meeting?
It's a council meeting.
Okay. So on a scale from, 6 or 7 on a scale from 1 to 10. Okay.
Why don't you ask the firefighters about their morale?
Ma'am, I want to keep this, I promise you.
Yeah, you take comments from other people, but not from his side. That's not fair.
Who did I take comments from? I haven't taken any comments. I'll take your comments, but I'm not going to play this game tonight. I will ask you to leave, so please, I'm asking you politely, please, just keep it to yourself. And my big, I have a very concerning issue regarding station number 2. At our last budget meeting, this was very, very disconcerting to me. You have a $6,000 budget item that was discussed in the budget. We talked about it. And you recall that discussion?
Yes, I do.
Okay, in that discussion, you stated that the state fire marshal inspector said that he would not approve that wall, but we could build it
Okay,
after he,
yeah.
wait, I'm sorry, but we could build it after he left.
Yeah.
What is that guy's name? Because I have to question him on that.
Okay.
Do you have his name?
The reason,
Sir, do you
let
have
me
his
explain
name?
to you the reason
Will
we
you
wanted
please-
that.
If you don't have his name, I'll write no. Let me follow up with my last question. Do you not have his name?
I don't remember,
Okay.
right offhand, I don't remember which particular fire marshal was out there.
Okay.
But let me explain to you the reason they wanted that. Because they said somebody would be living there. And I said, nobody is going to be living or sleeping here. This is a volunteer fire department. There is not anybody sleeping or living in this station.
Okay. Hypothetically, if I'm fire chief and the state fire marshal says you cannot build the wall there, it's out of my mind. What concerns me is that you feel it necessary to go ahead and disobey the state fire marshal's guidelines pertaining to the building code and build a wall. And you said that on tape the other day, which really, it kind of blew my mind that you admitted that you were going to completely disregard. And for me, as our fire chief, I find that very, very concerning. I have to tell you, on a scale from 1 to 10, you're grading your department's morale as a 6 or a 7. So you're giving, at best, you're giving them a C. At really, it's probably a D or an F. I mean, because I've talked to a lot of
You
firemen.
know why?
Why it's D or an F?
Yeah. Do you know why it's there?
That's what I'd like to fix.
Okay, do you know why it's there?
Why is it there?
Because of this crap that's going on right now. Excuse my language.
It's okay. Because of, you're pointing at Eddie because of this?
That's right.
So Eddie's the reason behind your bad morale problem on the fire department?
Mm-hmm.
It went on
Eddie,
for years
another
after I got
gentleman
there,
sitting out there in the
years
audience.
after I was here. It was bad before I got here, Paul. And it continued to stand bad while I was here. Y'all showed me that firsthand. And it's continued being bad after I left.
Do you have any questions?
I have to question.
Neil, if the minimum department.
Well, yeah, I have a request.
Okay,
You guys keep minutes at your fire meetings?
yes.
I think those probably should be included, especially now, for the fire department report, so we could see.
You're welcome to come and see them. We have them all on record.
Just like the inventory sheet.
We have inventory. It's probably about 150 or 200 cages. Probably 2,000 or 3,000 items. Everything's on inventory.
Do you have any other questions?
I have a question
I
over
go
the
to every
training.
meeting, Neil.
I
I go
have a
around the
question over
room.
the training.
Excuse me, I'm speaking.
speaking.
I go around the room and I ask every firefighter, is there anything you'd like to say? One by one. There's firefighters sitting out here, you can ask any one of them if I don't do it. They have an opportunity to say anything they want.
I believe you asked the question. Yes, I believe that completely. What I've heard from them though is a lot of them are scared to say what they feel because of retribution. I'm telling you what they
You can ask any one of them out here, any one of them, if there's been any retribution because of anything they've ever said.
Okay.
I got retaliated against.
Yes, sir.
I came up to the last
This
board
is the
meeting.
votes from the firefighter Friday.
I was retaliated against because I was waiting on a pension for a year and a half, so I brought it to the
That's
board.
a lie, Eddie.
Sir?
I've got it, so I brought it to the board.
Neil, let me explain something to you.
The reason was that my name wasn't mentioned due to retaliation. And they agreed that there would be no retaliation if they mentioned my name. So I raised my hand, mentioned my name. As soon as I walked out the door, I got jumped on by his son,
Okay.
and it followed up right by him.
Okay.
There's witnesses, and there's also a police report down at the Shawnee Blood Explanation back at it.
Okay. And I understand there's been some issues and aside from what you just said, I have to go back. Do you have any other questions? Okay. Regarding the fire department training, I mean, I've looked over the fire chief's responsibilities over and over and over again, try to wrap my mind about what the chief's responsibilities are and what the responsibilities are. Fire department training, the training hadn't been offered in 5 years. We're forcing the firemen of the fire department to have a course that hasn't been offered in 5 years for them to be an officer. It has been asked several times. What do they think you're passionate?
I don't. You want me to do it?
No. I get it the right way. Figures are gonna go.
Neil,
No, sir, let me finish, go ahead and say what I have to say, because it's been asked by the firemen to please change the requirements for the officers, and you guys constantly say, we're not going to dumb down our fire department, which I totally agree with, but we're not allowing our firemen to succeed in the manner which I think they should. Regarding the The approval of new firefighters, I mean, I think, I mean, that one just kind of confuses me. The morale issue in your fire department, Paul, I think is horrible. If the morale of my team at my job were a 6 or a 7, they would have gotten rid of me a long time ago and there'd be no questions asked because everybody would understand why. Not having the renomination of your officers when it wasn't held the first time, we asked you, gave the opportunity, go have your nominations with your firemen. You guys do this. You had no nominations, you didn't offer it. But you chose to have a private citizen, again, I love Rick Stiles, but you chose to have a private citizen, you know, you didn't have one of your officers count the votes. Some of those things, and then you know, the station, the wall, you know, totally disregarding what the fire marshal said. You know, there's a lot of things there that really confuse me.
Let me explain something to you about Firefighter 1.
Okay.
Firefighter 1 classes have been available, not here at this place. They have been available in different places around the state. If any one of those guys really wanted it that bad, they could have gone someplace. I would have been more than happy to get them in it. There have been times where we said, hey, there's a class in Mulvey or Stillwater or here or there. There have been classes, nothing around here in central Oklahoma.
Yeah, I would agree with you that if they really wanted to, but these are guys that have full-time jobs and families to support. As much as you guys like to say this is not a volunteer position, it's completely 100% a volunteer position. They give their lives and their guts to go out and support this community, fight fires, show up when they're tired, and we're limiting their growth in the fire department because we're forcing them to have a class or a course that they can't get to. That I find completely absurd.
That is a problem statewide.
Then I think if it were up to me, I would change my SOGs or my guidelines so that these guys could have, take it off, make it open to where it's fair for all the guys, all the firemen to have everything they need and advance. They can only advance so far. And you know, for whatever reason, I agree that they need the firefighter 1. I agree that someone has to have it. From where I sit, there's a whole lot of training. I mean, if you haven't had, you know, our last meeting, we were talking about training. You know, when was the last training class that there's been? That's one of the chief's job requirements. That's one of your duties.
Well, I kind of have a problem with the training here because I sit through NIMS class, NIMS training here. I went online and it's almost a 3-hour course on the training models. I sat through a 45-minute slideshow and was given answers to 3 courses. By Steve and Paul got the same answers. He's sitting right next to me. In order to get a grant within 2 weeks, it had to be deadline. It had to be turned in within 2 weeks in order to get a grant. Is that not fraud?
If it's not fraud, it's probably just unethical. I'm sure, you know, at most it's fraud, at least it's unethical and probably unbecoming a fire chief. Any other discussion on this?
I'd like to make a motion to remove Paul as chief, place him back into the ranks of firefighter with the result that he not to be, have an officer's position again here at Bethel.
I second. Jane, we call roll, please.
Panovich,
No.
Jones,
Yes.
Smothers,
Can I ask a question real quick? I just want to make sure, back into the ranks as a firefighter for the good of the service, we can't add, but somebody told the countywide that we should, I don't want the district attorney coming to look for us again.
Well, if that's the case, then I'll make a motion to remove him, place him back into the ranks of the firefighter for the good of the service.
As stated in agenda
As
item
stated in
16.
agenda item 16.
Okay, I second. We call roll, please.
Panovich,
No.
Jones,
Yes.
Smothers,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes. Motion's been approved and passed. Agenda item number 17, discussion, consideration, of possible action to select an interim fire chief for Bethel Fire Department until the Bethel firefighters select one for consideration, and that selection be presented to the Board of Trustees. I don't see us selecting an interim at this time. I think we have a very capable assistant fire chief. I think the assistant, the fire chief duties will fall on his shoulders for a period of 1 month. And that month, we'll figure out what we're gonna do on a fire chief at that time. So, do I need a motion on that, or is that just?
It's on the agenda, so you'll probably move to like strike agenda item 17 if you're really not gonna.
Okay.
Or postpone it until.
Okay, I move to go ahead and strike agenda item number 17 then.
I second.
Okay, I have a second. Any discussion? Okay, I have a second. Shannon, we call roll, please.
Panovich,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Smothers,
Yes.
Davis.
Yes. Okay. I have Melvin Potter.
Mr. Mayor, just a couple, 3 items that I had questions about. Number one, would you have to have a official meeting to open and to get a quorum to have your inventory or your meeting for all this? Well, since there's going to be more than 3 of you, 3 or more of you there?
Well, that's a good question. Paul did bring up that we would need a meeting. So if that's something, we're gonna talk about that at our, future. If we do need to have a meeting and everybody walk with us, take a look at that, I don't see a problem with that. I think that's something we have to do.
The second item is the equipment, material that you're going to dispose of. Do you not need to have that surplus in a meeting? And
Yes, absolutely, yeah, and that's what I think we've talked about is looking out there. There's a lot of stuff that we need to have a surplus sale of some kind and do that, announce it, advertise it, stuff like that.
At one meeting, Rochelle had mentioned a website. Scott Hawkins, a Pot County Sheriff's deputy, builds websites, and he will build your website for you for free and furnish you a great number of email addresses. He's just waiting for a phone call from someone from his organization.
Okay, will you get with me afterwards and give me his information, and I'll write that down? You have a minute remaining, you have anything else?
That's all. Thank you.
When we do our walkthrough, we're just gonna do it quick. See what we need to do.
Yeah, I think we have to have a meeting if there's 3 of us,
I mean, you put this off anyway for the special meeting, is that not correct?
to discuss, what we're gonna do then.
Right, so, I mean, really, what you're asking, you really kind of.
But we're not gonna have, when we discuss it at that meeting, that's not necessarily saying we're gonna have a definite answer of what we're gonna sell.
No, you can't have more than 2 board members. Then more than 2 board members, you have to call a meeting.
Right, I
If you
understand
let
that.
more than 3 guys go out there, you have
So-
to declare the meeting.
Yeah, so me and Paul can walk out there and go through this stuff and say, and Paul says, this is definitely stuff we need, or this is stuff we don't need. And so,
I mean, we can do it as part of a meeting. What I'm saying is, we're not gonna come up with a list at that time.
No, I
of
don't
what's
think we have
gonna be
time.
sold. No.
yeah, I don't think we have
There's already a
time.
list.
There's an inventory list somewhere we hopefully will find it. Good question. Anything else on that?
No, I just wanted to, I think, from what Mr. Potter said, it sounded like we were gonna come up with a list of things right then.
Okay.
No.
And we're just gonna basically determine, even if we need to have, if it's not enough, I mean, it would be silly to have it if there's 5 or 6 things.
It's gonna be more than 5 or 6.
Well, I know that for a fact.
All right, our next person is Mr. Stiles. Yes, sir.
My name's Rick Stiles, and I'm just a private citizen. But I'm a private citizen that's concerned enough about our fire department that I've attended several meetings. I'm a private citizen who tries to go to the very bottom of the problem to find out what the problem is, instead of listening to phone calls or letting people gather up around me. I go seek out the information. I feel lucky that I have been allowed and invited to attend firefighter meetings because they will let you very quickly know that you're not a firefighter. They know their business, they're very professional. They know what they want, they know what they need, they know how to get it done. They voted for that man, unquestionably. There were no strong arm tactics, there were no anything. They're behind him 100%. They have a morale problem because they do that time and time again. And they constantly get brought up in front of this board and have to defend their actions. They are concerned now the rules and regulations that they put together, that they worked on for, I know, 10 years. Are those rules and regulations out the window? Is there an answer to that?
I don't have an answer for you, sir. I'm just listening to your comment. I'm sorry.
They're very concerned about the qualifications for their officers. I listened to them discussing around the table, across the board. I didn't involve myself, but around the table and across the board, they said, no, we're not going to lower our expectations. If anything, we might need to set the bar higher, because our lives depend on this training. Our lives depend on the people that lead us. I was very, very impressed with what professional department we have, what committed people we have. And I was very, very concerned about the interference that they're getting from this board when they're trying to do their duty to save our lives, to save our property, and doing it on a shoestring budget. And then I listened to this tonight. I heard excuses. Personally, I think my earlier beliefs were proven true tonight. I hope this board will reconsider what they did and look at all of the ramifications, look at all of the costs to this town, look at all of the benefits that have been brought to this town, and see if you really believe what you just decided. I think if you look at it candidly, if you take a well-rounded viewpoint, I think we've come to a different decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sauce. We have no other public comments that are signed in. Would you like to make a comment since you didn't see the sign-in sheet?
Sure, you bet I would.
Okay, please, go ahead. I'll sign you in. What was it? What's the first?
Paul Simpson,
Paul Simpson?
Rural Fire Coordinator, Region 5.
Okay.
As I stated at the last meeting, which I don't think you gave relevance to, is that I told you that fire service training has not been offering that level 1 firefighter class for the last 2 years. We took that directly from them. We deal with them directly as fire coordinators across the state to look and see what training is needed and try to get those training classes implemented out there. What they've done, they've hired 4 specialists now that have a quadrant in the state that now can come to the fire departments and help them adapt their training to what the greatest need is. For example, if you only have 4 or 5 guys that need level 1 firefighter, but you've got 12 guys that need first responder, what should be your priority? Okay, that's something that the fire department has to address. It's one of the chief's responsibilities and his training officer responsibilities to do that. I don't think you give any consideration towards that in listening to your comments tonight. My job is I'm going to deal with whoever you put in place as your fire chief, okay? Fire chiefs come and go. I mean, for whatever reason, as the authority, you make that decision. On behalf of Paul and the firefighters here at Bethel, I made a comment that I thought they did a very good job. They represent the town very well. And I'm not sure that that was taken in high esteem either. But anyway, I have some concerns over what I've heard tonight. And I hope, as far as morale, I will tell you with 92 fire departments that I have contact with, that morale is always an issue. Training is always an issue. Funding is a bigger issue. And that I would ask that the town look and support these guys because they are volunteers. They have a full-time job. They do what they can for their community. I would expect you to support them 100%.
Okay. I have a comment. I have a comment.
Question.
Go ahead.
Not so much a question. When, and I know Rochelle got up the last, we can have someone that's certified to teach that firefighter 1 in-house.
My understanding is now that you can have a firefighter 1 class in-house to meet the in-house requirements, and then you still have to go to Stillwater and meet the burn requirements, firefighter 1. So the majority of the work can be done in-house. That's my understanding.
Okay, and just so everybody's clear, the budget, money, if the fire department needs something, they're gonna get it. And if anything, and one of our line items, and this is completely out of the hat, we need a chainsaw. You can buy a $6,000 firefighter saw, or you can buy a $400 saw and put a $1,000 bar and a chain on it. My question was, is one gonna be enough? And it don't matter if we use it one time a year, if we need it, it should be there. If you need to cut a door open, the tool should be there, and there's no check mark. You got a truck that has a check mark, doesn't have gas, check. There's no manual that tells anybody how to do it. I know they start it up every Monday, but if they go out on Wednesday and it doesn't start up, they can't come back to the Monday and say, hey, we started that. Well, where does it say that you started it? There's no record keeping of any of that. Now, if the fire department needs something, all they have to do is ask. The board that was up here before might have done things different. I can't speak for anybody else that was up here, but I'm telling you right now, anything that they ask for that's job related that they need, they're gonna get it.
And I don't, let me follow up with the budget. I heard shoestring budget, which seems to be spinning, because let me throw a number at you. The fire department has a budget this year up through the end of June of $69,299. That's full year budget. As of May 4th, the fire department has only spent $26,581. Now, I'm not a math whiz, but that's less than a half of their budget has been spent so far in the year. So the fire department obviously needs nothing.
I wouldn't say that.
Well, I'm saying that they've got $70,000 roughly in their budget to spend, and they've spent half of it. So if anybody tells me anything about shoestring budget, or they don't have what they need, here's the number right here. They're not spending the money.
I don't think anybody's making that statement.
I heard shoestring budget, I heard him say budget over here, and
I would rather pay to give them their training than $6,000 for a wall.
that's exactly right. Yes, sir, go ahead.
Okay,
I'm gonna give you another minute.
What was that comment? I didn't hear
He
that.
said he'd rather give $6,000 for the training rather than $6,000 for a wall that's not approved. But go ahead, I'm gonna give you another minute.
Well, I'm not aware of the wall situation.
I'm very aware of the wall situation. It's very unusual.
Okay, I'll discuss that later after the meeting, okay? Because when I helped get the grant to build the station, number 2,
Yeah.
I helped counsel Paul on the codes that pertain to that station. And if you change more than 10% of the occupancy, then we had to go with the 2-hour rated wall, okay?
And that's perfect. But you'll find, sir, what I do, I'm not I'm not a hugely, degree person, but what I do is I ask a lot of questions. And if I have a state auditor or a fire marshal that comes in and inspects that and says that you can't put a wall up, I want to know that guy's name, because I'm gonna call and ask him if he said that.
Yeah,
or if he said that you can't put it up, I can't give you approval, but when I leave, you can do whatever you want, which is what Mr. Fernetovich stated. I'm gonna go straight to the source.
Sure,
So-
and I understand that. That's, I would do the same thing. I would say if there's a comment made that's contrary to what I understand as the code is, then I'm going to research that.
Absolutely.
But I will make this comment. If you remember at the special meeting, I made myself available for any questions you had about the fire department or anything in my expertise, and I received no calls.
Yes, sir. No, sir. And if I thought I had something for you, I would have called you. I just didn't know that you would have the information on the wall, or I would have called you.
Well, I know that if we're talking about the initial wall that we talked about on the 10% occupancy, I do have some information on
Okay.
that. Did you have any questions for me, any board members?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I've talked to some, and when I say some, I mean 3 or 4 firemen. And I probably tend to agree with them just by who it is. Everybody has told me personally, not phone calls or anything else, face to face, that they probably wouldn't want nobody else is going to do the job that Paul's done as fire chief. That's not necessarily the root of the problem. But to kill the root, you got to get rid of the weed. Well, I think Paul's just part of the weed. He's not the complete root system. So, I mean, he had instructions to redo the elections, all of them. From the meeting, I would also like to see the percentage of calls that all the officers have been on. Because if you're a captain, you should have attended way more than 1% of the calls. And if you can't make that many calls, then you don't need to be the captain. Now, I don't care if you're the, whatever you want, you've had more training than anybody in the state. It don't do me any good if you ain't out there. So, because you've got X amount of training, doesn't do me any good if you're standing on top of the hill talking to TV reporters and you got 4 guys down in the ditch busting their butt and they got to do everything from start to finish. 1 guy stays clean, 4 guys are killing themselves, and they got a full-time job. Anybody that ever wanted to go to training before, I don't think this board would have any problem whatsoever giving them 2 weeks of salary to supplement their income to go get that training. I don't think anybody's ever asked for it. I don't know. But there's problems way beyond what we think. This is not what we think, by the way. This is a compilation of several different opinions. And I don't think anybody's going to do the work that Paul's done. And I appreciate everything he does. They needed the water truck at Golden Rule. Golden Rule needed water. Paul come up here and washed the truck by himself so he could put it out there and make it look good. So I don't think anybody doubts his dedication to the town. That's not what it's about. The morale that the people that I've talked to, I would score it more like on a 2, just from what I've heard. And people are afraid because of the comments that have been made in meetings. That's why I would like to see all the minutes. You can't argue with Steve's opinion and my opinion. That doesn't matter. I got minutes of my meeting. I've got a recorded tape. We can go get it right. All the evidence is right there. If I got their minutes, we can compare everything. So then it's not our opinion. Because this is not just our opinion. We're not about to let Eddie Jones make this a platform for him to come take his personal differences out on Paul.
Just did.
I tried to leave it
Yeah.
So, now, whether it happens or not, he ran for the position, he got the position, he put it on the agenda. There's more than enough cause. The rules and regulations, the standard operating guidelines, I've got copies that were presented to you guys several months ago, and they were just tossed aside because we're not going to do that. But see, I can't prove any of that because I don't have the minutes from any of your meetings. So without that, it's basically me saying what I've heard,
So I
which
guess
doesn't carry a lot of weight.
the question is
If you
why-
haven't been recognized, please don't speak, sir. We're all going to get a chance. You just have to wait and be recognized.
We're just citizens.
I'm just telling you what.
Well, you're not
The budget-
citizen of the town.
The budget,
Behind the station.
Okay, I'm going to stop. So I'm going to allow one more comment because she's waiting patiently and she's raised her hands. Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Okay, I have,
You have
y'all.
3 minutes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Would you stand,
You were
please?
talking,
Would
my
you-
name is Nikki Smith,
Thank
okay? You're talking about, for the fire department to pretty much lower their standards for the officers. Me being a citizen, I don't want some Joe Blow that doesn't have training coming up trying to save my life or my children's life. I want a person that knows what they're doing and has had the training. Okay? It is no different than being at a job and somebody getting promoted over you that doesn't know what they're doing. How is that fair? How is that right? How is that going to help the town when you've got somebody that wants the little white hat because their fire chief in there but doesn't know a lick of what they're doing? How does that help the town? How does that help me? How does that help save my kids if they're dying? Explain that one. Leave that in your mind. Okay, would you want somebody that doesn't know a lick of what they're doing if they're trying to save your child's life? No. You want somebody that knows what they're
Let me
doing.
answer that clearly. There are several firemen on that fire department. There's one not sitting in here. There's probably only 2 of those guys that I know without a shadow of a doubt that don't have firefighter 1 that I would be happy to show up at my door if my kids are choking or coding. Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. So to answer your question, frankly and bluntly, absolutely there are.
But you're talking about medical training, not fire training.
I can
I
explain.
answered her question.
Fire, okay, if my house is burning down, I want somebody to come that knows what they're doing.
Okay, I have an explanation. The guy that has the training responds to 1% of the calls.
Not necessarily.
If, documented.
He's not the only person on the fire department. There's
Documented,
16 other men on that fire.
1%. The training has 1% of the calls. So 1 out of 100, he responds. The guy with no training, who should be getting the training, responds to 80% of the calls.
Okay.
Okay, we're at 30 more seconds and we're done.
These men, just like all of y'all said, have full-time jobs, okay? My husband, he has a full-time job. If he misses his job for training, who's gonna pay his wages? Is the town gonna pay his wages? If the town will pay his wages, he'll do it in a heartbeat. Because we have to survive.
Call up here, put that on the agenda, and ask us for approval.
As of right now.
You better
Not
be
a
careful
problem.
what promises you make.
I'm not making any promises.
Yes, you are.
I said, put it on
You
the
just want me to put it
agenda,
on the
and we'll
agenda.
look
That's
at it.
fine. I will be more than happy
Okay.
to have you guys pay my husband's wages so that he can go do what he needs to do.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Everybody say motion second. We adjourn.
Thank you, folks.
Paul, I'll trust you to turn over everything you need to what's the assistant fire chief's name? Justin, you'll just turn everything over to him. I appreciate it, sir.
Well, if it's not operational.